Assalamu alaikum, peace. My name is Sham-e-Ali Nayeem, and I love nature.
Beautiful. I do too. Welcome to the Woke Wisdom Podcast. This is Alexandra Loves, and I am with my furry cosmic guardians, Cyrus and Bisu, joyfully coming to you from the Moon Garden, where wisdom is nourished, awakening is embraced, and fun is encouraged. Today I want to start with gratitude. Thank you to each and every one of you for listening. Just by simply listening is such an amazing support. And sometimes when I'm, editing into all hours of the night, I'm thinking to myself, is this getting out there? Is this even making a difference? And now that there's been some episodes out and people are starting to go out there and click and rate and review, I am getting some reflections back from your experiences, and I'm finding out that it actually is touching people and people are inspired by what they are finding, and that feels really good. And that is part of the intention, bringing wisdom into how we create this new world together. So thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing, and you can do that right now just with a few clicks. Just clickety, click, just a few clicks. Thank you for sharing with your groups and your families, and also the rates and reviews are very, very helpful to me. I'm so appreciative. It's essential to have this community support in an undertaking like this. And for those of you who are curious about episodes to come, community events, please go to our Facebook and Instagram accounts. They're under Woke Wisdom Podcast. This next episode is a very special one. My guest is Sham-e-Ali Nayeem, whose cool and gentle focused open doors of inspiration for me when it comes to my own engagement with creativity, especially when I'm blocked and I'm feeling like, nothing's happening. I'm inspired by her journey of always learning and opening to her own creative spirit and the realness with how she communicates this. I'm sitting here with I'm virtually sitting here with a very special woman. She is the author of the poetry collection City of Pearls and the album of the same name. Sham-e-Ali Nayeem is an Indian Muslim American poet, musician, artist, and recovering social justice lawyer. Her poetry has appeared in Apiary, Dusi, and Misna, and can be found in anthologies, including Shattering the Stereotypes, Muslim Women Speak Out, Living Islam Out Loud, American Muslim Women Speak Out, and Shout Out, Women of Color Respond to Violence. Sham-e-Ali is the recipient of the Loft Literary Center Spoken Word Immersion Fellowship. So friends, let's take a deep breath and welcome our guest, Sham-e-Ali. I have to say, in connecting with you, I have just been so inspired in my own artistry and found you to be a really warm and caring individual, and connecting with you has just been such a delight in my life, and I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for this conversation, and it's always a joy to be in your company.
Yay, we're so blessed. So, my dear, if you could be an animal or a non-human, it could be a plant life or something like that, what would it be and why?
I'd probably pick like a water creature.
Yes.
Like a whale,
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was reading, what book was it? I was reading and they were talking about how when a baby whale is born, all the whales come and say the name to that baby. All the whales of the pack come and say the name to that baby when the baby is born.
Really? That is so powerful. But it's like additionally powerful because like they're one of the oldest creatures on the planet.
Yeah.
And, they're like these record keepers in this other environment of our planet, the ocean, that we humans, they're parts of the ocean we've never even witnessed.
Yeah, this unexplored frontier.
Yeah. So I love whale songs, and I like the way they move, and I could keep going because I'm like, oh yeah, we didn't even talk about the birds I like hummingbird. Hummingbird. I like that too. They're also kind of fierce, but sweet and very joyful.
You're sweet, joyful. So you could be like one of those metamorphized, like one of those creatures that just chooses for the day. This is what I am.
Yeah, this is what I am today. I would say today I'm a hummingbird.
Nice. I love it. I love it. Beautiful. Okay, one last thing about birds though. Do you know, I just watched this David Attenborough hummingbird thing on streaming, and they were talking about how hummingbirds can't walk. They have to fly. They're not designed to walk. You know,
I
like
didn't know all these facts.
Yeah. The amount they eat, it's just like a 49-minute documentary. I think it's on Amazon or something, and it's on hummingbirds, and it's absolutely mesmerizing. And I've never thought about that. Like, I've dreamt of flying before, right? But I never thought of what it would be like to be a creature that is the mode of transportation completely, and that's it.
But they can float on water, right? I've seen them in little like bird baths and stuff, washing up their feathers and things. Do they not have feet?
No, they have feet. They just they do have feet. It's just that they don't walk or hop. That's what the documentary said. They only fly and move.
And they can stand though.
They can stand.
Yeah. Yeah, they have feet. I've seen them.
Can you imagine?
That's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you could fly like that, you'd probably pick that to focus on in your life because they're so... Have you ever like recorded a hummingbird in slow motion?
No, but in this documentary, there's a lot of that type of footage, and it's
the sound waves on the slow motion of a hummingbird are just so beautiful.
Okay,
like
I'm gonna have to look that up.
They're not just the wings, but also just any sounds. They make sounds that we just don't hear. And when you put it in slow motion, you hear it.
This world is awesome. There's so many really cool things like that in this world. It's just like infinite, awesome, beautiful things that are in our creation. Thank you for that. I'm actually going to put if I can find that sound, I'll put it in the show notes for all of us to explore. Okay. Is there something significant that you'd like to share that you discovered about yourself in the past year?
This past year?
Yeah.
That I've discovered about myself. I mean, there's so many things to choose from because I feel like it's been a year of just so much growth and definitely my relationship to time has changed during this time. I think what I've learned is that the magic of human beings, adaptability.
Yeah.
You know, you just adapt to whatever is happening. And so I've learned that about that within me, but I do believe all humans share that quality.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I'm going to just stick with that. I could keep going. I have a list of so many different things I feel I've learned about myself.
Yeah.
But I will say I am grateful, that these circumstances have allowed for such growth and such time with myself.
Yeah.
I think I would say I learn more deeply, like what's important to me.
Yes.
and a stronger sense of my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And, because my relationship to time has changed, I feel more fire in me to like get things done
Yes.
because life is not promised and we just
Oh,
have,
that's true.
we just don't know. Things can all change in a second. So
I
if I
mean,
can do
didn't they?
something, I try to do it. I try to do it now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting to be in a time where like things have, in some ways, like a lot of things slowed down, but that sort of mortality you're talking about, who knows what tomorrow is going to bring or if we're going to be here. And it's actually quite beautiful, to to be motivated in the fact that like, wow, this life that, you have something to give to this life, and we're being challenged with the fact that not every day is promised. So why not live it?
Well, it's like it's not kind of YOLO type thing. It's
No.
more for me, it's more, I can tend to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I'll plan to like do a project or like, I want to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But, and this past year has encouraged me to be like, oh, you want to do music? Well, then do it
Yeah.
now,
Yes.
not like you only live once, but more, you really want to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you waiting to do it when all the circumstances are perfect for you in your mind to do that thing?
Yeah.
Start now and just do it.
Yes.
And so that's been pretty amazing to just like take some risks take some risks towards my dreams and things I want to really do.
Yeah. They they say that when they talk to people on their deathbeds, there's, the a common list of regrets, and one of them is that so many people had these desires and dreams of something big they were going to do in their life, or something they wanted to immerse themselves in, being a musician, or writing the book, or whatever, climb Mount Everest, whatever it was. And there's this expression of like, I could have done that. I could have tried. And I feel like that's what you're speaking to right now. And I've experienced a lot of people, friends and community members who all of a sudden are breaking out the ukuleles and the they've had in their attic for a really long time, or making those plans to go overseas. That is something they always wanted to do. And now it's happening, even in the time we're living in right now. So I really appreciate you speaking to that. It's a very interesting time in the era of human history, people becoming who they are.
Yeah. And not just like for my dreams, but in my relationships, like
Yes.
communicating things to people that are important to me,
Mm-hmm.
being good to myself.
Yes.
Like, you know what? Just burn the candle you're saving
Mm.
for that special day. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm gonna burn the candle. I'm gonna use the soap. I'm gonna eat the chocolate.
Eat the
'Cause
chocolate.
I'll save stuff
Eat
like,
the
oh, this
chocolate,
is the
please.
emergency chocolate. I'm like, the emergency is now.
Oh, chocolate, the great healer.
And if you save it, it's like not even fresh chocolate anymore.
Word.
So,
If you could spend an afternoon with someone, who would it be and why?
oh, my dad.
Yeah.
I miss him.
Mm.
I would love to spend an afternoon with my dad. But I mean, he's here. I think when I say this, I mean, I guess his earthly self. I would just love having chai with him and
Yeah.
I don't know, doing some task together or yeah, definitely him.
That's beautiful. I like that you picked family. That's beautiful. Yeah, I was just thinking recently about how there's this new focus, and some of us grow up with with focuses of working with our ancestors, praying with our ancestors, having some sort of relationship in that. And I've been thinking a lot about how there's been this huge new focus, especially here in the United States, of people wanting that. People who've never been raised with that idea, or um, or are even comfortable with it sometimes. And I'm really loving that this interest in either the creating the relationships, or starting with something small, just to bring family back into life presently. So, family that's departed into our life presently. And so I love that you picked your dad. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about him all the time. So
Mm-hmm.
It would be the biggest joy to get to spend an afternoon with him.
Oh, blessings. Blessings to his soul. Yeah. What are you up to these days that feels aligned with your spirit?
Well, I'm working on my second poetry manuscript,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
which I'm really excited about. And I'm
We're all
also
excited
working
about
on
it.
my thank you. And I'm working on my second album of poetry with electronic music that I'm composing and putting together, like
Mhm.
synth. And I've been in this sound practice class that's been bringing me a lot of joy these days. I love the folks that are in the class,
Mhm.
and I love the teacher and founder of the class. His name is Malik Abdul Rahman,
Uh-huh.
and he's really cultivated just a really beautiful space
Mm.
that's just giving me some room to ask um, questions of myself and just grow as an artist
Yes.
and help to synthesize, you know, my work as a poet and my work as a musician,
Wow.
where I don't feel like they're two different boxes, but like, you know, just a unified
Ooh.
expression.
Ooh. I like that. I struggle with that myself, synthesizing different things that I'm creating or into. What a great class to be offering. I'm excited to see what comes out for you.
I'm excited too. I think we'll see. We'll see. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Beautiful. And I'm speaking to your first manuscript, City of Pearls, which you've agreed to recite a poem for us out of this book. I'm so excited. I really, one of the things that I really appreciate about City of Pearls is that it feels like it feels like unplanned in a way. It really does feel like I'm on the journey of your life, and like something just occurred to you and you shared it with us in such beautiful words. It's thank you for giving us that sort of window into your life and showing yourself this way, because it's really fun. And it goes into some deep subjects too that I'm like, whoa, that's deep. And then later I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like really to be in that like experience. I don't want to give away everything in this book, because I'd like people to experience them, for itself. But I almost consider this in some ways like a sacred activism of sharing what's inside you, and how you're experiencing what's going on in the world around you in such a almost conversational way. It's not written in conversational way, but it's just like so open. And I'm just really appreciative of the way you wrote this. Obviously I'm not a poet critic or poet analyst. I'm sure I'd have better words to explain what I'm trying to say, but it's a great book, City of Pearls. And I'm really grateful that you created this and shared it with this world.
Thank you so much. One of my intentions, like, I tried to very intentionally write these poems using just a real economy of words, like not using too many words to hold, I think, experiences that a lot of us share.
Yes.
And I wanted to just like come from a place where I was using some of my own experiences because they're mine, but where others could relate to those experiences
Yeah.
in these things we share. And something that we all share as human beings is that we are born.
Yes.
And that we die. And that, birth and death. We all share that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hold those things in ways that felt gentle.
Yes.
And offer some room for space. There's a lot of space in the book.
Yes, there is.
To just breathe a little bit and hopefully connect together on those themes of grief, death, birth, joy, relationship to self, relationship to spirit, to nature, to love. Yeah.
Beautiful. When you made this is an additional question, but when you made the sound album, you incorporated like your own music, like you made the sound for this as well.
Well, for the first album, I worked in collaboration with a composer. His name is Qais Assar. He plays the rabab. And so the instrument you hear on that album is the rabab.
Okay.
And the rabab has been used over time with other poets. Poets have very easily worked with this instrument.
Yeah.
Hafez used it. And I believe Rumi as well, and many other poets. And so the first album, I didn't compose that music. And I didn't play the rabab. It's pretty amazing. And I've had the honor and joy to get to perform with him, which is how I met him for the first time. And then I invited him to be on this album and shared what my vision was for it. And so he agreed. So that was really great collaboration. And this second album, however, I am doing all the music to it.
Wow.
But it's not the rabab, it is synthesizers.
Wow. Like a graduation or something. It's like a whole new world.
Well, it isn't a new world for me per se, but it's a world I haven't shared. So yeah, I've definitely started. Music has been a big part of my life. I would never have called myself a musician for much of it, but I definitely spent a lot of time in my own space engaging with it. And I love synths.
Yeah. I know you do. I've seen videos.
Oh gosh, that's embarrassing. Yeah, geez. But yeah, so it's been, what's really been magical about it for me is, and I felt this way also when I engage in like visual art, is like the heart is always like the poem for me.
Yes.
And it's just this like new language to express the poem. And so it's just been really like, I've really just been enjoying having these poems I've written
Yeah.
and then creating these landscapes for these poems, like
Oh,
sonic landscapes, like oral spaces to hold the words, but really almost they're like the shadow or even the light or,
mhm.
I don't know, they're just like a part of it. And it's the same poem. It's just a different language. And that's felt very exciting for me and really spacious.
Yeah.
And it offers me a lot of peace when I work on the pieces. Um, and it's like with a poem, you write it and it's on the page. There's so many iterations of these worlds I've made for each of these poems. And
Yes.
then one of them just gets recorded, you know? And that part's pretty magical for me too, is
Yeah.
like the non-attachment to these moments that just happen with myself and the poem. And sharing that and exploring that and also learning and allowing myself to grow more.
Yeah.
I still feel nervous to call myself a musician because there's so much I still have to learn. There's so much I still have to grow.
Yeah.
And so I don't like, I have so much respect for the folks that, you know, have been sharing their work their whole lives.
Hmm.
You know, at the same time, I know this is something that's in me too. And I'm excited to just like take that more seriously for myself. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying about what did I learn about myself this year?
Uh-huh.
And this is something I really love. And
Oh,
I'm willing to like put in whatever work I need to do to grow in it because it's a place that makes me really happy.
wow. What a what a deep truth that I think sometimes we're sort of conditioned against, but I really like I noticed you said something like to this effect a little earlier too. You said, I just really enjoy this. And right. And I remember long ago I was a professional actress and there was a time when it was, I'm like, this is it. Like this gives me the most joy and I'm really excited about it and everything. And then I started using that as sort of the litmus test. And if I was involved in a production or, doing something and that wasn't that wasn't bringing me joy whatsoever, then I found out that I wasn't really even able to give myself or my heart to what I was creating on the stage because it was almost like sullying this truth within myself, which is this performance space is something I enjoy and I love um and at that time it was easy to motivate myself to work at and learn more skills in. And I believe what you're talking about is a radical act because so much of what we get conditioned into and some of the structure a lot of the structures of our world have us spending a lot of time and effort and energy on things that do not bring us joy and, and aren't exciting for us. So what a radical act to find something or to be in something, learning something, creating something, sharing it with the world that really you love and brings you so much joy.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
And you know what, as you were speaking, I was like thinking about it took me forever to even call myself a poet too. That took time.
Wow.
But I was writing poetry since I was like 13.
What?
Yeah, I felt scared to call myself a poet.
Huh.
Like, what do you mean you're going to call yourself a poet? Like, these are real poets over here. And I feel like I hear a lot of people do that to themselves too, Like they'll be an amazing photographer, but not call themselves that,
Mm-hmm.
or be a poet and not. I want to make jokes right now. I'm not going to do it. But didn't know it. Okay, never mind.
On the Woke Wisdom podcast, you're welcome to make any jokes moving forward.
You were a poet and you didn't know it. Okay, sorry. So sorry.
It had to happen.
It did. I'm sorry. I will tell you, I love to laugh, and I love humor. But anyhow, yeah, I hear a lot of people not think they're a thing that they are. They're just, that's who they are.
Yeah.
You know? And, or they have been put in a label like, you're a filmmaker, so why are you going to be a fiber artist right now?
And yeah, the limit.
And, you know, and then there's a lot of people that don't do that, and they're open to be all the aspects of themselves, you know. And I take a lot of inspiration from that, to just take creative risks and be drawn to the thing that's within you.
Yeah.
Pushing you towards your purpose, and just exploring the ways in which you express creativity. So it makes me nervous to call myself a musician. But you know, I'm making music, and I love it, and I encourage others to do the same. And it doesn't mean that you're not being respectful of the people that have put in the time,
right,
in their life. I think both can happen simultaneously.
Okay.
You can have room to grow and learn, but don't let it stop you from doing a thing that you love, and fulfilling, you know, your dreams and your goals, and modalities of expression of your heart.
This is something that we first sort of connected on when we were talking about having this conversation. And that is, you were talking about that art is a space that anyone can access. And I've been thinking about that statement a lot since we started talking, so, you know, the last couple of weeks. And I was like, you know, I mean, we've had a growing friendship since before that, but since we started talking about this particular question, and I realized that I find that intimidating in a way, that art is a space that anyone can access, you know. And we could break down so many ways. What is art, and who, like what we were saying before, what's an artist, and when do you call yourself an artist, and all this. But I found it intimidating because of what you're talking about right now. There's so many people that I know. I know a lot of creatives and musicians, especially, and dancers. And I started as a musician and a dancer. And then there were times in my life where I just wasn't. And, you know, injuries and different stuff that happened in my life. And when I'm looking at this question and thinking about this question, I'm like, whoa, I realize that I don't, in my heart, it's like in my heart, I know I'm a dancer, but there's some block in me that's like, no, you're not. You haven't been practicing, or you haven't been, you know, showing work, or whatever it is. And when I saw this idea, some art is a space that anyone can access, I just felt like a little bit of shame, because I have not been accessing that space the way I was before. And I sometimes wonder if, you know, there's all sorts of, you know, places where people can be sort of viewing and perceiving this comment. But for me, it really felt like this really deep negative judgment of myself. And I know I'm not alone in that. I know a lot of people get away from the art that they're expressing because of kids or because of, injury or something in their family, or culturally it's not okay to do it. So let's talk about that a little bit. That art is this space that anyone can access.
Well, I think when I think about that, I just mean like within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like really what art is, just like connected to the creativity part of, that is the central element to all art practices,
Yeah.
is like you're creating something.
Mm-hmm.
And the access part isn't that necessarily you could just do anything you want. Because I mean, when you're saying like, there's so many different ways that people might be limited or prevented from doing different art practices.
Yeah.
But I think when I mean that it's there for
Yeah.
everyone,
Mm-hmm.
is that it's like available within you, the ability to create. That agency to create is within every single human being. How you do that might have different elements, but the actual like imagination, the actual like creative ideas, that's all in you. That's
Yeah.
within everyone. So I think that's what I connect to in that statement,
Yeah.
is the freedom that offers within us inside, our ability to vision, our ability to create
Mm-hmm.
things. Kind of connects to what I was talking about in being adaptable.
Right.
That's such a creative practice, to be adaptable. And so to me, like, that's where I connect to that.
Yeah.
And it isn't meant to sound like some kind of judgment for folks that might feel like there's obstacles
Oh,
to,
yeah.
but more, we all have the power to create. We all have that power to choose inside ourselves,
Yes.
irrespective of whatever's happening outside of ourselves.
Yes. And okay, so I also, you kind of just opened a door for me, and I also want to be clear. I definitely didn't think that's what you you were saying when we were talking about the comment. It was sort of my shadow stuff coming up, and how I interacted with it, and wanted to speak to that, because I feel and I can hear how, when you're talking about art and the accessibility of it and our relationship with it, it's very open and expansive and accessible to anybody. And so I appreciate you breaking that down, because I think it's vital for us to hear that especially from people who are immersed in putting it out there. And it's so easy for us it would be so easy for me to get the City of Pearls, right? And be like, oh my gosh, like start playing into like a hierarchy of, this person has something that, or is accessing something that I can't access, is doing something that I can't do in my own version. Like, I'm not going to write City of Pearls too, right? I'm also not a poet, really. So, but there's this conditioning that sometimes when we see or feel these tangible things, like a poetry book, or we hear somebody's music, and that is really showing us the focus or the work or the hard feeling that this person is connected to create this thing. It sometimes it feels like it's far away, and that if you've not accessed that for a long time, or if it's hard for you to access that, it's just not for you. And what I hear you saying is that that's for everybody. It's in everybody, however it comes out. And it's so important to hear that from like people who are accessing it and showing it. So I appreciate the way that you um, engage with this concept of anyone can access.
And there's no one path.
That's right.
Because there's no one formula.
Mm-hmm.
You literally could create a form that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Look at all these different forms that never happened before that happened because people access that power within themselves that we all have. And like, what are the things we tell ourselves to stop ourselves from that all the time? So how many years of my life have I stopped myself from sharing music? Decades. And yet bought myself a guitar and taught myself how to play it. And yet would sit around with a keyboard for hours. Even before the pandemic started, I was just like sitting. I don't know some stuff. Like I definitely do not know some stuff. I'm also a little like, I just had my synth. I had an amp. I connected the synth to the amp. That's all that happened. Like there was no computer involved. And I would sit for hours having the time of my life.
That's beautiful.
Like that would be sad if I stopped myself from doing that and tell myself, well, you're not a musician, you're a poet. And why do you think you have the right to do this? And
right.
You haven't done this and you haven't done that. And are you even good?
Ooh. Speaking to my wound, are you even good?
So I really like, I don't know. I see lots of folks with so many gifts. And it's like, I hope everybody gives themselves a chance to create and do the thing that makes them happy. And by that, I don't mean not to respect the discipline, the focus, and the care it takes to really like I don't know if I should, I don't know what word, but really like excel in your craft.
Yeah.
Grow and evolve in your craft.
Right.
And take it to the highest level that you can.
Of course.
There's so much, I respect that. So I'm not trying to be like, anyone can do anything. And just like, and I mean, I am kind of saying that, but, but also holding the, like if it is something you care about, like go in, give the discipline for it, give the time, but don't let these things stop you.
Right.
From listening to that voice in you that's telling you to create.
And that brings me to this other thing that we're talking about is that art is healing. And you just said about, listening to this voice inside you. And my view is that, that's who you really are, this spirit, this soul that lives inside you. And there's all sorts of perspectives on that. But that's the most important voice of all is, and so let's talk about this healing. Art is healing. And I want to know, how is that played out in your life? I know that sometimes you mentor other artists sometimes, right? How is that played out? How do you see that happening? Art being a healing experience.
Well, first I would say that people are their own healers, along with spirit or God or, the universe. You are the one, you are the healer. So when you get, and I've said this, I think in like other conversations, but like when you get a paper cut, like it's your body healing the paper cut. the people that help along the way, like a doctor or those are facilitators. Like they help facilitate that healing if you need support in that. But ultimately, like you're doing the healing.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say that art is healing, I think that comes connected to your intent around your own healing. So if you are creating art and you create that intent around your own healing along with the art in terms of the expression or the idea, or the way in which art allows for a transmutation to occur from something that might be painful, that might be traumatic.
Yes.
But I think the key element, though, is your choice in that, your agency in that, your intention in that. And it also connects to even experiencing art so that we are healed from art, even when we are not the creators of it.
Right.
But just by experiencing it.
Yeah.
It's a space of seen and unseen, which is also healing space.
Yes.
And there's like mystery in art as well. So I don't even know if I can figure out the words for some of it. And not to be like, oh, wow, that's so deep, but not like that. But, like I think there's a lot to it that I don't know if there are words for. But I think, yeah, there's like the things we make that heal us and the things that we receive that heal us. But in the end, we make the choice to heal.
Yes. Yeah. I think you're saying in a way I can feel that. You're saying in a way that I'm getting that, and it makes me come back to this art of storytelling, which is definitely present here in this podcast, and why I wanted to interview so many of you amazing women in my life. There have been times when like I personally have been stuck in, whatever it is that I'm creating or try, even if it's something I'm figuring out in my life. It doesn't have to be something even related to art, but it's just something that I'm wrestling with or difficulty finding balance with. And I'll hear, Sham-e-Ali tell a story. And I'm like, oh, she spoke from her heart and she said this thing. I went to one of your readings once online. I don't remember which poem it was. And you said something and it felt like it wasn't related. If you looked at what the issue was in my life and what you were saying in that poetry, you wouldn't know that they were related. But after I saw that reading, I was like, huh. And it opened this door to this struggle I was having.
Oh, wow.
And I think we can do that, and this was poetry and, a type of storytelling. And, you were talking earlier about how that creates, this, I can't remember exactly how you said it, but you're talking about how like the creativity comes from that inside voice, like creation is art. Right. And, I'm just so grateful that we can live in a world where what we create from ourselves, whether it be poetry or music or, the best type of chocolate chip cookie that has ever been made, that it can soothe us in some sort of way, open doors for us in some way to help us know ourselves better. Isn't that a healing in itself, to know ourselves better?
Absolutely. And I would also say, and I think I was like losing myself, like, I don't have the words. And, I I think some of it is like art helps us bring us back into our bodies,
Mm-hmm.
to just like, there are things our bodies tell us that aren't words, but the body is the first communicator.
Yeah.
Things we're going through, or what we hold.
Yeah.
We hold in our bodies. So one, art is a place to take that out, to take, let's say you're holding trauma in
Yeah.
your body, and you can create art to take that out of your body.
Yeah.
And like change it
Mm.
into something beautiful or whatever the expression. So there's that, or it's like coming in and like just even listening, like, what is my body? Like art will bring us back into that, and different forms like will do that even more so, like
Yeah.
dance and music and its relationship to dance and the way it makes us move.
Yes.
And even poetry, which you don't need instruments, your voice is that. And even though you aren't singing, there's still like a musical quality to sharing words from your mouth, from your soul.
Yes.
And it can bring you back into your body. And I think that's a healing aspect, like that embodiment.
So it sounds like we're talking about like the art being healing in our receiving it and perceiving it, but also like as somebody who's receiving from someone else somewhere else, right? But also the healing that comes when in our own engagement with what comes through us.
Definitely.
And sharing that. Wow.
Definitely.
I feel like this is how humans just used to be before we had all of our systems and our structures that we had today.
Oh, you mean before capitalism came to disassociate us from everything important?
Yes.
From our entire like sense of life?
Yep.
Yeah.
Art,
but that's like true though. Like art does bring you back from that disassociation in all the ways we cut ourselves off from ourselves and cut ourselves off from our ancestors, cut ourselves off from nature, cut ourselves off from spirit, cut ourselves off from our own healing and our own ability to heal and our own sense of agency.
Yes.
I think art does a lot to bring us back into that.
We talked about being distracted as a creative and how you open yourself up and getting committed to your craft. And not that getting committed to your craft has to be the goal for everybody, but it is something that could possibly, as we've talked about, be healing for some people, it could be healing. And also, I'm sure there are people who are listening right now who desire that, getting committed to their craft and whatever it looks like for them. So have you ever been distracted and being creative?
My gosh.
I know I have.
I've definitely been distracted. Some distractions are like life just throwing things at you and you're just like, oh, this, okay, that. One distraction is also like, it's really hard to sustain yourself as an artist sometimes.
Yes.
And so it's very distracting to have to do all these other things to sustain yourself. And then your art.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? The sustainability thing is a major creative block. But not. So I feel like my distractions come when I'm like just trying to deal with things that life will present. But then the way to deal with it, right, is the thing again, like the adaptability.
Hmm.
And then to just see like what new thing is here to that might shift something for
Yeah.
me to do what brings me joy.
Uh,
And so that is kind of, and then, some of it is like routines and rituals.
hmm.
And that I think is very helpful around distractions. Um, I like the ideas. I like rituals and
What
um
What do you
and
mean by rituals? Because I would say the majority of people who'd be listening to this podcast would be like, "Oh yeah," but for those people who might have one idea about what ritual is, could you share a little bit about that?
so let's say I have a ritual that every day when I wake up and read a new poem, somebody's work, brand new.
Yeah.
And I've set that as a ritual for myself to
Ah,
start the day with. Um, that is a wonderful practice because you engage with new work. There's some new idea you get to see, you learn,
yeah.
um, you get to just experience, um, and it's yours.
Yeah.
There isn't any rule. Nobody's like, hey, you got to do this every day.
Right.
It's yours. And when you commit to that ritual on a consistent basis,
Yeah.
beautiful happens. It's kind of like fasting. Like you could fast one day, and that's its own experience, or you could fast 30 days. And by that, I mean sunrise to sunset. So you're like eating in the night. You're not like 30 days not eating.
Yeah.
Um, but like, let's say you do that as a commitment.
Mhm.
There's a different experience in doing it every day for 30 days
Yes,
as opposed to doing it just once.
of course. Yeah.
And so to me, like, that's what I would say, like, a ritual means to me, where you've made like some kind of commitment to yourself,
Mhm.
um, to do something that unfolds a little bit like a flower in these unexpected ways. Can't be forced,
Yes.
but then you just experience a really beautiful thing from that commitment to the ritual.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't know if that makes sense,
no,
but
absolutely. I'm glad that you explained it that way. It's very that is easy for someone to get. Like that's accessible and I'm glad that you explored it that way. You explain it that way because sometimes when we say the idea like say the word ritual, something specifically spiritual will come up. And I think it's important for us within ourselves to sort of make up our own rituals around, what it is that we're intending to engage with or something that we would like to get out of it. And, you know, and also be flexible on what that might be. You might say, I'm going to do this ritual of reading every day, somebody's poetry every day, and then think that it's the intention to keep you in a place where you're gonna or inspire you to write, but it might bring out something else. It might bring out a song. It might help you realize that getting up 10 minutes early every day is actually beneficial to you and bring you on a whole other path. But I appreciate you explaining it that way because it's something that people can understand.
or it could feed your life, or it could heal something, or
Yes.
it could make you feel connected to something bigger than yourself, or
Yes.
it could, keep going. We could keep going, and rituals don't have to be that huge. Rituals could be I'm watering my plants, and that's all I'm going to do at
Yeah.
this time. And, you know, there's that will become your relationship to that
Mhm.
one act.
Yeah.
And you start building with that act.
Chocolate
So
before bed.
chocolate before bed. I don't know if I would do that one. But I might.
Let's just throwing that
Brush
out
your
there.
teeth after, just do that. But yeah, I had a ritual last year. I made it a point every day to go to the river for a walk every day. Cold, rain, didn't matter. I mean, where I could, like if it was like a blizzard, obviously that day I didn't go. And I built a relationship with the place.
Yes.
And I think that's what the ritual does. It like helps you build a relationship with the thing that you're putting in, including a relationship to yourself in relation to that thing. So going back to the example of reading a new poem a day.
Yeah.
You build a relationship with new text. You build a relationship with poetry as the reader.
Yeah. And so that when you're in times of distraction, these rituals, I think what you're saying is that these rituals help keep you connected to the subject, even if it's like not, I'm going to write a poem every day. It's something that's just connected to that poetry.
Definitely. Like I think the river is an example of that, right?
Yeah.
That helped me stay connected to myself.
Yes.
And to God, it was end of the land. And, things bigger than myself outside of me.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful, I think rituals really, really help. If you ever feel stuck, if you ever feel really distracted, you can pick a very small ritual even. And, you can even notice the rituals that already exist in your day. Many of us have them. We wake up, we make a cup of coffee. We wake up, we might make our bed, whatever that is for you. You can add like one other thing that you feel might be creating a distraction or that might help you through a distraction.
Yes.
And be compassionate with yourself if you're not able to do it one day or, but where you can, it's like a container so that you're not in a space of getting pulled into just like reacting to the things happening in the world around you. I think sometimes that's like what distraction can be too.
Oh my gosh, that's always my distraction.
Right? And then you just get caught in the other thing. Like it can pull you back to like, where you want to be.
Yeah.
Like you and your plants and you're watering them. And
it's amazing how much I allow myself to be distracted by the getting to work on time and paying the bills. And I mean, all things that are necessary for me to do if I want to live in this apartment and have a paycheck or whatever. But I have noticed that there are times in my life where I say my brain like it's not connected to me, but I feel like my brain is creating more things to do that are not in alignment with what's inside me, what's sort of inside me to be expressed. It's like my brain sometimes take over and is like, this one task that really could take you, 15 minutes with proper planning. It's going to take you like hours. And and that takes up so much of my space inside me that where's the room to dance to my favorite music. I forget that that's even I forget it's a priority.
I think the other thing, and I think we were talking about this before we started recording together.
Yeah.
This podcast was just like multitasking versus monotasking.
Yes.
And like, how beautiful monotasking is when you just focus on one thing.
Yes.
and you eliminate some of the distractions that kind of like easily slip in when you're multitasking. I'm
Mhm.
not mad at multitasking either, because there's some finesse to multitasking that I respect.
Yes.
And then there's just sometimes where we're required to multitask because there just isn't any other choice.
Yes.
But I also think there's some beauty to focusing on one thing,
Mhm.
and where the mind goes with that, and how it eliminates distractions
Mhm.
sometimes to do that. And then sometimes, like, maybe you just need to be distracted.
Word.
And like just embrace that, and it's okay, like maybe unconsciously your mind is working through a thing,
Yes.
and that distraction is just helping you do that unconsciously. So
Yeah.
I tend to really like to go for walks, because I really believe very deeply, my dad taught me this, is that you work some things out even though you don't realize that you're doing it.
Yeah.
You kind of unconsciously work some things out when you go for a walk and just take some time to do something like that. And
Beautiful.
that's a great place to get distracted by, like, seeing some birds flying above, and oh
Mhm.
wow, like what a like, I was just like the other day, I went for a walk and I heard all these like creatures. I was like, who is that? And like it was these little squirrels like darting through the fun distractions. Those are fun distractions.
Playing with nature.
Yeah. And like I think just not being so hard on ourselves sometimes too, and just, allowing things to flow.
Yeah.
And sometimes our minds need a break to not think about anything.
Yeah.
I was reading some article somewhere where it was just like, we're really inundated with thinking about things all the time.
Yes.
And especially with social media and things like that, or the internet or whatever. And that, it's like kind of good to not think about something at all sometimes, and just like zone out, or
Mhm.
and allow that rest, so that whatever unconsciously needs to work itself out, it has room to do that, some room to breathe.
Yeah, I was just talking to my friend about how we used to sit and just look out the window as kids and look at the rain or look at the clouds, and we would do it for long periods of time.
I would do that too.
Yes,
I
right?
was that person too.
Yeah.
And like, or like just like stare out the window in a car ride or a bus or whatever, and just
Yeah.
like I would zone out looking at the trees, the different landscape, or just like following the moon.
Ugh,
And like where it would
speaking
end
my
up.
language.
Like but yes, I was definitely looking out the window kid as well. Or
Yeah.
just like staring into that space of so much going on outside.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's good for the mind to rest sometimes.
Mhm.
And it actually like helps propel more creativity.
I agree. I agree. I have noticed in the last like year or so that my distractions have shifted more to, and I live in Portland, so part of it has to do with I don't like to be in the dingy rain. And so during certain seasons, instead of sort of opting for that looking out the window or like sitting in the grass or whatever, I'll opt for the easy stimulation, like, streaming online TV shows and stuff like that. And it's interesting because my brain does allow itself to, like, I'm not really thinking a lot, but it's overstimulating in a way that is not organic or natural. And so that I have noticed fills up so much space inside my brain. Even though it's not activating, it's filling up space that is definitely not leaving openness for creativity. Whereas, like, this distinction we're saying, like, if it's in nature and nature speaking to you, and you just looking out a window or staring at a mountain, or just letting, without stimulation that's programmed to fill your head, it's a really different type of distraction. And it's interesting because that type of distraction, like you're saying, can help you be more creative. It's such a simple thing. It's so like, it's such a simple idea. It's like seemingly obvious, but it's really easy to forget this.
Well, I
But
think it connects to what we were talking about
yeah.
with just being embodied. Like, is it something
Mhm.
that's bringing you back in your body? Is it
Right.
something that's bringing you back into yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it something that's disassociating you from those things, which
Yeah.
some of these distractions can do?
Yeah.
And so just trying to be really cognizant of that for yourself. Is this distraction helping me?
Yes, right there. That's the question. Is this distraction helping me? Yes. I love that. That's a really good way to look at it for those of us who are like, yeah, where we go start rituals. Beautiful. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Could I ask about City of Pearls?
Of course.
How did this start for you? Could you tell us a little bit about, give us a little bit about the journey of how this eventually became a book? Like, where did it start? You've been writing poetry since you were little, but there's something that happens when we decide to put it all together and bind it in a book and have this tangible thing that goes out into the world. Where's the birthing of City of Pearls?
So there's a couple things. It took me a long time, definitely over 15 years.
Wow.
There's poems in that book that are definitely over 15 years old.
Wow.
One thing that was important, City of Pearls is a nickname for Hyderabad, the city that I was born.
Mm-hmm.
It's my ancestral city, and it's located in South India.
Mm.
And I come from a marginalized community in India. And initially, the early poems that I was writing, my dad was alive.
Mm-hmm.
um, and I wanted to sort of capture these subtle histories of my community that often is erased or not valued or dehumanized.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do it in like a really simple and very subtle way.
Right.
So if you read this book and you're Hyderabadi, you'll see like all kind of little secret play things
Ah,
in the
okay.
poems
Uh-huh.
that you would recognize, that would be familiar.
Right.
And and then my dad passed away.
Mm.
And all of a sudden the whole book changed.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the name of this book back then either. It was like something totally different. And I didn't even think about a book at that point. I just had to write.
Yeah.
And, more years went by.
Mm-hmm.
And, but each of these poems were being created at their own time. And it wasn't like I was a full-time artist during this time either.
Yeah.
I was doing all these other things, the recovering social justice lawyer.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is during this time you were a lawyer.
I was, but it's definitely informed my poetry.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other topic. Gosh, we've been talking for a while, so I don't want to go into that whole other topic, but I very intentionally have become a recovering
Mm-hmm.
social justice lawyer. It was a very intentional decision to move away from that.
Uh-huh.
And to me, I really believe that the space of art is the space of liberation.
Mm.
But that's a different topic. I want to get back to, like, I guess your initial question about the book. So I was like, oh, Mom, I was like also sustaining myself. And I was also doing some of this other work with a commitment to um, intimate partner and family violence survivors.
Yeah.
And all of this is informing my work. And then I'm just grieving losing my
Yeah.
dad
Yeah.
and just taking my time with that process. And, as the time is also going by, different things are happening. 9/11 happened.
Wow.
That impacted the work. Um, various wars,
Yes.
various violences here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just kept writing. Finally, when this thing's really just started being really born, there's like this pregnancy time, and then like you're getting into pushing this thing out. It like I didn't include all the body of writing that took place during these
Yeah.
years. It wasn't just like, here's everything. There was like intentionality of picking each of these things and then editing them down so that they capture the most with the least amount of words
Yes.
and just have like a sort of simplicity to them, which is also intentional. Um, and it took shape of what I was sharing with you, of this
Wow.
journey of grief and loss,
Mm.
but also birth. So that some of these poems were written before even my son was born, you know, and many were also written after he was born, and some were written before my father died, and many were written after my father died.
Oh my
And
gosh. This is like your life story in this book.
well, it's kind of, but not.
Yeah. I mean, you don't specifically talk about my life and this is what happened on this day. It's not like that, but it's this artistic expression of such a really rich part of your life, it sounds like.
But the part of my life that I think connects me to all humans,
Mm.
that we all experience birth in some capacity and we all experience death in some capacity.
Yeah.
You know, and we, yeah, and I think I wanted this book to sort of connect back into also the coming back to yourself
Yes.
in between these two things that constantly are taking place in our life,
Hmm.
you know deaths and births constantly.
Mm.
Even within our body, something is dying all the time,
Yeah.
and something is being born again and regenerating all the time. And I wanted to that's what I was my what I wanted to try to capture with it in the most simplest of ways.
Mm.
And so that was the process. So then, yeah, and then finally there was a Upset Press, that was interested in the manuscript. And by 2019 the book came into the world, and then you let it go. It's just become its own.
A treasure for the world.
I don't know about that, but I don't know about that, but it's become whatever it needs to be.
Yeah.
It's like not mine anymore in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And, one of the biggest gifts in the experience of sharing it is just like getting to hear from other people and like the ways in which it resonated for them and their life.
Mm.
And they will share stories about their life or people that they've lost that they care about, or, you know, their own relationship to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's so beautiful. And yeah, I'm glad it's done and out there, and I'm excited to like move to the next thing. And I hope it's not going to take 15 years. That's what I want to get to, like, let's do this now. Let's do this now. So
Different energy. That grief is something that comes up. Grief and loss is something that comes up naturally in this. It's like a common theme I noticed in this book, and you and I talked about that. And was there any part of you that maybe this is kind of not the like kind of a dumb question, but was there
not
any
even
part of
dumb
you that was
questions.
like was just like scared to share so vulnerably about grief and loss?
I mean, definitely it's scary, but I know like some of the poems that I wrote, like I had to.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, there's something that transmutes when you do create. And it isn't just like, hey, let me work out my stuff.
Yeah.
Like I have an intention with this, that if I share this, I hope that it will also offer some space for the
Yes.
reader. So some space just to get back into themselves, get back
Hmm.
into their body, get back into the person that they love, get back into themselves that they love.
Yeah.
Um, that's the hope. That was my hope.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yes, grief can be scary, but when you embrace it, there's nothing to be afraid of anymore, you know. There's a lot of beauty in it as well. And I'm not going to say that, oh yeah, like I found the answer. I wrote this book. I found the answer.
Hmm.
And now I don't grieve. I
Right.
grieve. I still grieve. I still miss my dad
Yeah.
deeply. It's interesting to like read, when I read poems about him, you know, I still grieve, you know? So um there's no time with it, I don't think.
Hmm.
But I do think, you know, it's very linked to also the new, so that even when I'm grieving my dad, I'm happy about my new relationship with him
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
And that's the new, that's the birth,
Word.
that's the getting to know him as an ancestor.
That's beautiful.
And, you know, so my hope is in these poems, like in sharing that, it just might offer someone some peace.
Oh, definitely. I can attest to that for sure.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Sham-e-Ali, if the Sham-e-Ali of 15 years ago walked into your dwelling and wanted to talk to you, what wisdom would you share with her?
I'm just like, wow. It's weird that you picked 15 years.
I know.
Because
I
that's
picked it
when I
before
lost
we had
my
this
dad.
conversation. Oh, what?
So
I
I'm a
heard you
little
say
bit,
15 a little earlier, 15 years a little earlier, but I didn't equate those things. Yeah, I
well,
already
I
had.
didn't even equate it till now.
Yeah.
Because I was like, 15 years ago, my God, I would just want to hold her.
Hmm. Heart to heart wisdom.
That's it.
Yeah,
I would just hold her.
that's beautiful.
Because in a lot of ways, a huge part of me died when my dad died too.
Yeah.
And a new one was born, you know? I birthed a new part of myself.
Mm.
So I would probably just let her know it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Ah,
Got me
lovely.
crying.
I appreciate you sharing so openly and honestly with us, and this is that we were talking about this earlier. This when we share from what's really inside us, and we are connecting on a creative level, and I really appreciate that. And I would love to know, what is your blessing for this world?
What is my blessing for this world? Like,
Mhm.
what do I wish for this world?
Sure. Yeah.
I wish joy for everybody. And I really wish that everyone be okay. Like, I don't know. That sounds so like simple.
I
Just
love it.
everyone to be okay, to be happy, to be
Simple and
joyful,
powerful. Yeah.
you know, everyone to be all right.
I want that too. I do. I want that too.
And also, like, all the other things. Like, I wish everybody love. I wish everybody freedom and liberation
Yeah.
and like to be in their purpose. Like, I really wish everyone in the world that they be in their purpose.
Yes.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And there's so many beautiful nuggets of wisdom and what you shared. And I'm definitely inspired. A lot of things sort of woke up for me in this conversation. And I just, I'm really honored that you spent your time. And I wish you the very best, Sham-e-Ali.
Thank you so much for having me, Alexandra.
Oh,
You are a blessing.
oh, this has been awesome. Yes, thank you. Well, friends, I hope that conversation was as awesome for you as it was for me. Please enjoy this reading from our new friend, Sham-e-Ali, from her book, City of Pearls, which I will link in our Instagram and Facebook pages, as well as in the show notes. This poem is called Goddesses and Doormats, and I requested it especially for us.
This poem came from a quote I saw by Pablo Picasso, where he said there are only two types of women, goddesses and doormats. And I was like, okay, write this poem. Everyone would like to believe they are Mat, Venus, and Kali, but there are many doormats, one in front of almost every door. I feel reverence for the doormat, beautiful underdog, underappreciated, disregarded one you think isn't anything, seemingly without gifts and nothing to say. In fact, you may not notice her at all. Bristly, unassuming thing with a corny saying on top. Hello, welcome, love. Deity at the entrance, resistant to shock, immune to damage. She is the guardian of the doorstep, the first thing you touch before entering a home. You perform a daily ritual at her temple without thinking, born from the fiber of tender tissue that surrounds the seeds of coconut palms, the guts of Cocos nucifera, made from dignified hands. People reveal themselves in her presence, humble, arrogant, cruel, kind. She is aware of the manner of the step. At night, the moon comes to rest on the small of her back. Craters, scars, and light, her language.
The original and healthy beats for this podcast were created by Quincy Davis. His details are in the show notes. Woke Wisdom podcast episodes are written, hosted, produced, and edited by me, Alexandra Loves. My guests, of course, bring their own wisdom. If you have any questions you want me to answer on the podcast, you can email me at wokewisdompodcast@gmail.com, or even better, text the podcast at 601-301-6974. I would be so grateful if you helped me share these messages far and wide by boosting the podcast with good reviews on Apple Podcasts, or by sharing the episodes with friends and groups and families on social media. That would be so awesome. It just takes a few moments and a few clicks. Click, 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 clickety, click. Be blessed, and I'll see you next week. Oh, one more thing. They told me I needed a disclaimer, so cue the music. Let's do this. The information in all podcast episodes and corresponding materials, the Woke Wisdom Podcast with Alexandra Loves, are provided for general, informational, and explorative purposes only. It is not professional advice. Any content provided by Alexandra Loves, guests, bloggers, sponsors, or authors are of their own opinion and not intended to defame, slander, or malign any person, place, or thing. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or attached material. Alexandra Loves and her guests are not therapists, counselors, physicians, unless otherwise stated. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use this podcast or corresponding materials to treat any mental, physical, or medical condition in either yourself or others. Please seek out appropriate professionals for help. Privacy matters to the Woke Wisdom Podcast. People, places, and scenarios mentioned in the podcast may be changed to protect confidentiality. Through this podcast and corresponding materials, you're able to link to other websites which are not under the control of this podcast or Alexandra Loves. The inclusion of any links does not necessarily imply a recommendation or endorse the views expressed within them. In no event is the Woke Wisdom Podcast or Alexandra Loves liable for any loss or damage, including without limitation, indirect or consequential loss or damage, or any loss and damage whatsoever arising from your interaction with this podcast or corresponding materials. This podcast and all corresponding materials should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever. This podcast and all corresponding material is owned and copyrighted by Alexandra Loves. You are welcome to download and play the podcast and share with others for personal use. Please acknowledge the Woke Wisdom Podcast with Alexandra Loves as the source of the material. You may not, except without our express written permission, distribute or commercially exploit the content. Email wokewisdompodcast@alexandraloves.com to attain written permission.